Howdy everybody, Steve here, KM9G. We've got a new PC to test. Let's get to the bench. This here is a Geekom IT series mini PC. Comes in a nice little box, and you can tell by the size of the box, it's a tiny PC inside. I mean, I'm already impressed with the box. Let's see if I'm impressed with the packaging inside the box. Oh, it's even smaller, wow. That's typical mini PC size, but I was expecting it. I mean, they do have like two different size classes for these guys. It is a really cool blue color. And of course, even without a screen, it's still got a screen protector. Let's get that off. Oh yeah, that's going to take care of that contractual obligation. Before we look at the PC, let's take a look at the rest of the box so I can get this thing off of the workbench. There should be a little hole or something there like that to make it easy to open up. So there is, that looks like an HDMI type cord. That is an HDMI type cord. Excellent. Thank you for your support. A little envelope in there. We love, we pursue. I love too, but I don't pursue. That's a little weird. Thank you for purchasing our products to facilitate your daily life. We hope they serve you well. This is a lot better than the last message I got from the last computer that I reviewed that seemed a little, let's just say a little free love. Your trust and support are greatly appreciated. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please don't hesitate to ask. Founded in 2003, over 20 years. Wow, big old manual. Well, it's big because it's in a couple of, oh, it's pictures. Okay, now I'm good. I can read pictures. I can do pictures. VESA mount, nice. Put that on the back of the TV. Takes an 80mm M2 SSD, 1.2 volt DDR4, no drilling. Do not use a power tool to open this up. And then plug it into the wall, just in case you didn't know how to do that. I'm smart enough to fold this up too. Bag full of screws. That is the AC wall cord. AC power brick. Can I even read this? Efficiency level. Center positive. Output is 19 volts, so typical laptop power output type stuff. And it's been getting more and more common to make adapters to go from our 12 volt power supplies to 19 volt power supplies because there's a lot of 19 volt PC equipment out there. And then the mounting plate for the VESA setup. Pretty cool. Okay, I'm gonna put back all the stuff that I don't personally need to use. Manuals, thank you cards. I like that form factor. If you haven't seen one of these form factors before, this is 4 5/8. Obviously it's gonna be square by 4 5/8 by 1 and, well, by 2 if you include the size of the feet. Take a walk around the outside. We've got a Kensington lock port. We have the 19 volt power HDMI. We have a, I guess that's a 40 megabit per second USB. And it's got a DP on it, so maybe it also does DisplayPort protocol. And then 2.5 gigabit per second wired Ethernet. We've got USB 3, USB 2, a second HDMI, and a second USB-C port. We got an SD card there. We've got 2 more USB 3 ports on the front, a headphone jack, and a power cord. There's your bottom. Ta-da! Okay, so before we do anything, I'm going to take it apart because I want to see what's inside this. Everything's so small these days, it's probably only 2 chips, but I'm still interested. And also I want to check the upgradability. It says the front is that way, and the front has the power switch on it, so now we know. I'm just assuming here that we take the feet off, and those feel like they're captive. Yeah, those are... Woo! This is why I don't use power tools. I could die. They feel like they're captive screws, which is nice. So far, I'm digging this. Pretty well constructed. Does it just lift off? Does it slide off? Does it pop off? It's popping off. Oh, cool. There's actually a SATA connection down there. Room for a 2.5-inch SATA drive. Nice. It's a proprietary connector on the board, I believe. There is the NVMe storage. It's a M2 2280 PCIe 4 G4 x 4. That ought to be really fast. And we've got 2 sticks of DDR4 memory in there. That looks pretty good. And it looks like underneath of the NVMe drive there is another card. Let's dig. And of course that's a different screw size. It's a Lexar drive. And let's see if we can figure out. Yeah, that's what I thought that was. It's a Wi-Fi card. I can't read that memory. Need better eyes. So I get my better eyes out. Photo, take a photo, look at it. And that is Woodposit, WPH41028A. would posit. So we've got room in there for a second smaller drive. All right, I'm gonna put it back together. We're gonna turn this baby on and do some power testing, but make sure that the front goes to the front. All right, folks, it is time to start plugging things in for the first time. I don't know if it's gonna come on or not. Should not come on. It did not come on. So let's turn it on. Oh, fancy lights. Watch it boot. It's nice that the little spinner thing is right over top of the for support thing. And oh, it's Windows. We're going to fix that. Yay, Windows. And it's Windows 11, so it's going to take over my entire life. I booted up Windows 11 the other day, and I told it I don't want to participate in the backup program, and skip. And it said, okay. And the screen went away, and I logged in, and everything was great. And then a little pop-up came up at the bottom. Would you like to participate in the backup program? You mean the thing I just told you not to do, that I didn't want to participate in? Whole bunch of Wi-Fi's here, and we are connected. Just a moment.
Corporate accounts payable, Nina speaking. Just a moment.
Please keep your PC on. No, I turned it on for the first time to turn it off in the middle of setup. Seems legit. While the magic happens. No. While that's happening, I'm going over to the Linux Mint website and I'm downloading Linux Mint. 22.2 Zara. See, I wasn't lying to you. Let's download. Ready to download. Cinnamon Edition. I actually like Cinnamon. XFCE is lighter. This is a pretty beastly computer, so it should be fine. So I am going to run the sleek, modern, innovative Cinnamon Edition. Download. 3 gig download. Do I want to verify any of my integrity? Nope. I want to go somewhere in the US and grab something. Mr. Hosting. Oh, it's MIR Hosting. Mir Hosting. I thought that said Mr. Hosting. I'm going to go to Hoobly because that sounds like a fun name. All right. That's downloading. Please review the license agreement. I'm going to accept this because I am only just playing around here. And like it's some kind of legally binding agreement to accept something anonymously. I mean, the computer is connected to the internet, but they haven't identified who I am. How would you like to set this up? I would like to not set it up at all. Set it up for personal use. And really, I just want to get to the My Computer Specs page, checking for Windows updates. There's probably going to be a lot of them. Of course, me doing the download of Linux Mint in the background isn't helping its ability to check for Windows updates. Really? Feel free to walk away or check out the latest Windows features. How about we just do the skip all of this crap? No, we are held hostage. Windows knows better than you do. I'll come back when it's all updated. Okay, so I lied. I'm not going to do that at all. Where is it at right now? 6%. No. Not happening. So we're going to burn that image that we just found. I'm going to click on Flash from File. I'm going to pick the file from the download location. It downloaded straight as an ISO file. I don't need to unzip it. I don't need to tell you that Balena Etcher will automatically unzip files for you. I do need to select a target. And this is one of the cool things about Balena Etcher. I have a 32 gig USB flash drive that I plugged in, and it gives me the ability to show hidden, but don't do that. It'll let you overwrite your hard disk, and it protects you from not protecting yourself. Select one, and then hit flash. And it wants a password, which you guys can't see because it's not the window that I'm sharing. And then it's going to start writing. It's going to take about 2 minutes. I won't bore you with the details. It's writing over 3 gigs to the external flash drive, but that is much faster than the amount of time it took to get to 6% of Windows updates. We'll be back. In the time it took me to burn my entire USB thumb drive, Windows still hasn't made any progress on the update. We're at 6% still. So we're going to do what nobody wants to ever see anybody do. Hard power off. And you got to hold the power button down for a while because it's a ATX type power supply. And then the light goes off and we're done. And this is a really cool flash drive. It is broken. It's USB 3 on one side and USB-C on the other side. So I'm going to plug this into a USB-C port so I can get the optimal power out. And then there's some magical key press that we're going to have to explore together in order to get this thing to show its boot menu. And I'm going to guess that it's F7. And on my keyboard, I got to hold the FN key and the F7 key. There we go. We bring up our boot menu, we pick USB, and we are going to start Linux Mint. And this is the way that Linux has been for a while, especially on the Ubuntu flavors like Linux Mint. It boots up into a live operating system. What was that CD that you could get? Knoppix. Remember Knoppix? Whew. Where you could boot it up and do a whole bunch of rescue type stuff and whatnot. This is a fully operating Linux environment, and it's going to boot up into a Cinnamon shell, I bet, and allow me to play around and explore and verify that things work, or I can just get straight to the install. So I'm going to get straight to the install once it finishes booting up. The suspense. There we go. I should probably get a faster USB thumb drive. I've had this for quite a while. But we're booted. In the upper left-hand corner, there is an Install Linux Mint icon, double click on that, which will launch the installer. And if I wanted to, I could connect to my Wi-Fi right now, which is probably not a bad idea. I think it's going to ask me during the install, so we'll wait for it to ask. We'll be polite. We will be polite. Let's run through this in full screen mode. I want to pick the language of English, and I want to pick the keyboard layout of English. And then, like I thought, it's asking me about which Wi-Fi network I want to join. I want to join my Wi-Fi network, and I've typed in enough characters that it thinks it's a password. Continue. Install multimedia codec. So this is where it gets into some kind of licensing issues with like NVIDIA drivers or something along those lines. This is where you get outside of the open source realm and you get to install some stuff that's got some closed source realm. I go ahead and install them. It all depends on your particular flavor of religion. And then I really don't care about secure boot. If you need secure boot, it will come back and it will tell you later on in the process, like when you go to install something in the future 3 months from now that needs secure boot, it will come back and say, hey, you need secure boot, set this thing up, and then you can go through that process later. You don't need to worry about it now. So I'm not going to worry about it. Skip the whole secure boot process. I do not want to install it alongside Windows Boot Manager. Well, crap. This is a ham radio channel, and most ham radio software runs on Windows. So I will install it alongside Windows Boot Manager if I can get enough disk space to make that happen. We'll find out. This is pretty cool. It comes with a 1 terabyte internal SSD drive, and Windows is only set up to use 540 gigs, which leaves 482 gigs free for Linux Mint, but I can grab this little thing here in the center, and I can slide it over. And I think what I'll do is I will leave 200 and as close to 256 as I can get, which leaves me 766.8 gigs for Linux Mint. So plenty of room for Windows and all of its bloat, and way too much room for Linux. Install. Before you can select a new partition size, any previous changes have to be written to disk. You cannot undo this. Please note that the resize operation may take a long time. Suck it, Windows. If you continue, the changes below will be written to the disk. I mean the ones I asked for? Yes, do it. Okay, so now let's pick our time zone. And when I am filming this, I am in Phoenix, Arizona, which is a very weird time zone. I'm not in Mexico. There we go, Phoenix. Phoenix doesn't do daylight wasting time, daylight savings time like the rest of the world does. They do their own time zone. My name, Tio. Tio Mini IT3. We'll just call this Tio Mini. Pick a username, my username, choose a password, and I'm going to let it log me in automatically. Continue. I should have gotten 2 of these computers and done the Windows update side by side with the Linux Mint download, install, and everything. That would have been legendary, because I'm sure Linux Mint's going to get to the entire end of all of its updates before Windows finishes doing any of its updates. Installation has finished. You can continue testing Mint now, or you can restart the computer. Any changes you make or documents you save will not be preserved. Let's restart now. And at some point it will ask me to remove my USB drive, and I will press enter. And then when it boots up again, it's probably going to try to boot into Windows by default. So I want to do the F7 key again. And you can see now we have Windows Boot Manager, which is going to take me into Windows, or Ubuntu, which is what Linux Mint is based off of, or I can boot off of the Ethernet controller on IPv4 or IPv6. And I'm going to do it off of Ubuntu. And then this will automatically time out and go away, but I'm going to press enter because I'm in a hurry. And now this is booting up off of the internal SSD drive, and it should boot a lot faster than it did off of the external USB drive. And there we are. Welcome to Linux Mint. And this is a welcome guide, so let's go. It's going to ask me about my first steps. I can do desktop color, system snapshot, driver manager, update manager, system settings, and I can launch all of this stuff. But I like to do things the old-fashioned way. And I'm going to turn off show this dialog at startup, but it also gives me the opportunity to do documentation and look at help and contribute. So we won't see this anymore when we boot up again. And then from here, I'm going to drop out to my friendly neighborhood terminal, and I'm going to install a couple of applications. So sudo, if I can spell right, apt install. Well, first we got to do update. Sudo apt update. And this is checking for Windows updates in Linux speak. And I got to type my password right. It's actually the keyboard's fault. This is a lousy keyboard. There we go. So now we do sudo, and I'm going to install a program called Nala, which is a better package manager than apt. Nothing wrong with apt, but Nala is actually better. And then I'm going to install Joe, which is my favorite text editor, and it's better than your text editor. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And this is a program called bpytop, and it's a Python version of Top that does some really awesome stuff. And the cool thing about Nala is that it will choose the fastest mirror at runtime, and it will do multi-threaded downloads. I think it does up to 3 downloads at once. And I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it also does some other parallel processing along the way. So we run bpytop. It's going to give me a nice little graphical display of what's going on. And I keep grabbing the wrong mouse. And you guys can't tell that because you can't see the wrong mouse cursor. So I'm going to put that there, and it's going to give me this really cool graphical display. And so while that's running, I'm going to do a new terminal window. And we'll move this over here. And we're going to do sudo nala install neofetch. And this is something that you must do as a system administrator right off the bat, is install neofetch. And I probably typed my password wrong again. I did. Oh, it's already installed. Linux Mint rocks. Neofetch. Look at that. It tells me it's been up for 3 minutes. Resolution's 1920 by 1080, which it is. We're running Cinnamon. The window manager is Mutter, and the window manager theme is Mint Y Dark Aqua. Mint Y, or Minty. But that Y was hyphened and capitalized, so you got to say it right. 13th gen Intel i9 13900 HK, and the Intel Raptor is the onboard GPU. And there's going to be more stuff if I give it more screen real estate to do more stuff. Not much more stuff, but what I wanted to see was the speed of the processor, 5.2 gigahertz. Ooh, nice. So now let's do sudo apt. Where does it say RAM? Oh, RAM. That says 12 gigs, 32 gigs. So maybe it's got 32 gigs of system RAM and 12 gigs of GPU RAM. Yep, 32 gigs of system memory. So that is 12.8 gigs of GPU RAM. 13 gigs. It's probably 16 gigs, and some of it's in use by something or other and blah, blah, blah. But that's how reading memory always is. You can never get an exact right read because always some of it is used in order to be able to read the thing that you're trying to read. So let's do sudo nala upgrade, and we'll see how fast this is compared to the Windows updates. So we got a time estimate of 1 minute. It's downloading 66 total packages. I'm not going to make you watch all of this. I'll fast forward through all of this as it happens. 20 cores, and they're all bored. The biggest problem here is my internet connection, but you can see bpytop here. It's telling me the CPU speed, and it's throttling it up and down as needed for this process. Pretty cool. All right, we're done. That took about 3 minutes. This double dotted line here is the processor CPU utilization graph over time. And if there was actually some real CPU utilization, it would get wider and change colors and look really slick. By the way, since this is a ham radio channel, if you guys want to install ham radio apps, a lot of them are already included in Linux. So you could do sudo nala install, I don't know why I did that extra L, install WSJTX, and it'll go out and it'll download and install all the WSJTX stuff, which is your FT8, FT4, etc. Or you could do sudo nala install direwolf. If you are a packet radio junkie like I am, or APRS junkie like I am, or WinLink junkie, and you want to use AX25 for WinLink packet radio instead of using Vara. And if all of this looks like it's a little too much for you, you can also use KM4ACK73 Linux on this box. And it comes with a nice installer that installs and configures all of the ham apps for you. It makes a really nice machine. So we've installed 2 of those things. I still got to do something to stress out the CPU. So we're going to do some benchmarks. So I installed a tool called sysbench, and I'm going to do sudo sysbench test CPU, test equals CPU max prime equals 20,000. And it's not terribly important that you know what these commands are. The reason why I'm using sysbench instead of something else is because I have a history of sysbench runs from other machines, all my Raspberry Pis and stuff, and all the other computers that I've reviewed on the channel. And it gives me a good comparison. Welcome to the update manager. I just did all my updates. So watch this. I'm going to say, okay. It's going to check for updates. And it says, do you want to switch to a local mirror? Yes, I do. So, I mean, it does all that stuff that you're used to. I can pick my mirrors, and this is really cool. When you do this, it's going to start telling me the speed of the mirror. If you just wait just a few seconds, it'll tell you the speed. The Linux Mint mirror is pretty fast. Oh, but there's faster. And like I said, Nala does all this stuff behind the scenes for you automatically. I'm happy enough to go with the Fremont Cabal Internet Exchange. Sure. And we'll leave the base the way it is, and we'll update the apt cache, and we're done. And then we'll close this out, and then we can refresh. And it's updating the cache and checking for new downloads. And it says there are 2 updates available. So Mesa and the Linux kernel. So we should actually install this update, but I'm going to run the benchmark before I reboot into the new kernel and after, just for grins, for science. And if I would have run Nala a second time, it would have found this upgrade also and done this upgrade. And I can't run the benchmark while this is consuming CPU power. That would be unfair. Although, if you look at bpytop in the background, there's plenty of CPU to go around. Oh, we're up to 1 gigahertz finally. So we talked about Knoppix earlier, but even before that, you had to compile the kernel yourself. It's the same thing as anything else. Once you do it the first time, it becomes pretty easy and understandable, and then you can do it the rest of the time. And it says reboot required, but we're going to do that later. And I'm going to get down to doing these prime runs, and we'll do them before and after the kernel update to see if there's any difference, because why not? Started some threads. CPU 6 looks like it's taken off over here and doing something, and we're done. And it says 12597 is the speed on that for the pre-kernel. Let's run it one more time. And this time I picked CPU 7, which is pegged at 100%. And we got 12615, which was a little bit faster. One more time for grins, and 12606. So not bad for a 3-run average. And that was on a single thread. So let's reboot, which will put the new kernel in place. All right, so we're back from the reboot. We're back from the kernel update. We're back from all the rest of the updates. Let's run it again for grins and see if it changed that number. We were looking at 12,597 as our lowest of the last 3 runs. And 12,595. So close enough to not notice any difference. Okay, science is cool. So I want to run that. We want to make it bigger like we did the last time. And what I'm interested in seeing up here is what the CPU cores are doing. And I want to watch that graph go crazy. So let's give us even more graph space. Let's just go for broke and maximize the whole thing. So in our last test, it defaulted to running 1 thread, which is what we've done on all the tests in the history of all the tests we've had before. What I'm going to do now is this thing says it's got 20 cores. I'm going to run 20 threads and see what happens, just for science. And it says 20 are started. Oh, the CPU just went crazy. Look at that. All 20 of them pegged at 100%. And we can see the heat map off the charts. And then we lowered performance down because we were doing a lot more things at one time to 7226 instead of 12597. So let's calm that down to 10 threads for science. And now we've hit 50% on the CPU meter, so that's pretty cool. And moving the mouse actually consumes some more CPU power. That is not a bad number, 11,103 versus 12,597. The number I'm looking at here is the events average number. So the general statistics, the total number of events were 111,033. So let's take that back down to 1, and it should be back at that 12.5 number again. Yep, 12.59. Awesome. Okay, next up is the memory test. So sudo sysbench test equals memory, and we just run this one straight out of the gate with no options. Number of threads 1. We'll do the thread test again because it's fun. Oh, geez, that's a big number. 88471496. So that is the fastest memory performance to date. Awesome. 88471496, or 88,471,496. Jeez. All right, let's do it up to 20 threads again because we can. CPU's pegged again. I like watching that happen. And that's not that far off. 52, 428. How far off is that? 52, 42, 880. Oh, that's a lot off. Never mind. Yeah, wow. We went from 88 million to 5 million. All right, next up is the disk test. This came with a disk drive, so we get to test the disk drive. When I do my Raspberry Pi test, they don't come with disk drives. They don't even come with SD cards most of the time. And so I don't do that because it's an unfair comparison. My cheap, old, slow testing SD card isn't the same as your brand new, just bought whiz-bang SD card. And most of the time, I don't need a fast SD card for Raspberry Pi type work. So let's do sudo sysbench test equals file IO, file dash total size equals 16 gig, prepare. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a whole bunch of files to do all of its dirty work in so it can calculate it. And when we're done with this, we got to clean them up. So I'll show you that command also. That's running pretty fast. And hardly any CPU IO as you'd expect. 8.77 seconds, and it wrote out 16 gigs worth of data in that time. And you can look in your directory and you'll see all these test files. All right, so let's run the test. Sudo sysbench test equals file IO, file dash total size equals 16 gig, file test mode equals RNDRW, random read write. And we're going to run the test. CPU's still kind of bored. There we go. And on this one here, I want the read megabytes per second and the write megabytes per second as my comparison number. So let's do 8.44 is read and 5.63. All right, so let's do that again, but this time we're going to give it more threads because science. Yet again, I'm really trying to stress this thing out, and so far it's like, whatever. So it took 9.98 last time to run, and this time it took 10, so a little bit faster time. I don't see anything on the CPU graph up here at the top. Wasn't stressed at all. And our read numbers, we went from 8.44 read down to 7.87 read, and write stayed about the same, 5.63 to 5.25. Interesting. All right, so we got to clean up. So we just go back up to our prepare line, and we change the word prepare to clean up, cleaner up, clear up. There we go, clean up. And it's going to remove all of those files that I showed you that it created earlier, so we don't have a big mess on our hands anymore. Excellent. All right, so all that science was fantastic. However, science oftentimes proves things to you. Let's take a look. So before you get out of whack, I was wrong. I did the wrong tests. My tests were kind of out of date, but they're the ones I've been using for a while, and you got to compare like to like, right? So these are all the machines that I have tested over the years and all of their specs. And you can see that this makes the B-Link Me Mini that we tested, which that white box right there is the B-Link Me Mini, and it's hooked up to that screen. And it makes it look like it's a lot faster than the Geekom with a much better processor. The Me Mini was meant for network-attached storage and was optimized for disk performance. And the Geekom i9 13th generation, is a just powerful brute beefcake of a machine. So why is it slower? Memory was faster. There's a lot more of it, so that makes sense. The hard disk was faster than the internal SSD. The internal SSDs, both of those were made by two different companies. Crucial made the one that was in the B-Link Me Mini, the little white cube, and Lexar makes the one that's inside of the Geekom that we're testing today. But all of these numbers made me scratch my head and think. So I spent some time trying to figure out what a more modern benchmark is, and we did some more modern benchmarking. Let me show you what that all looks like. We'll go through the same thing for science. So we're over here on the desktop of the Geekom machine, and let's log in. And we're going to set up that same really cool visual display because I like it. And again, that command is called bpytop. Py like Python, top. Top like show me all the top performances. Like all these Linux wonks have been doing for decades now. And then we'll do another window here. And we'll do our benchmarks in here. So first thing we got to do is install the benchmark. And the benchmark is called stressng. So sudo nala install stressng. And then we install it. 4 packages, all done. And then we need to run our commands. So the first thing we need to do is see where the performance governor is on this machine. And we run a command called cat, and we ask the system for some info. So /sys /devices /system /CPU /CPU star, which means all of them, CPU frequency, scaling governor, and this is set to performance. And we can change this any way we want. There are a bunch of tools to do it, but we want to make sure that we're in performance mode instead of like power save mode, because we're trying to beat the crap out of this thing and get you the best performance results we can get. And so we are in performance mode. We're good to go. So now let's run our command. And our command is stress-ng. I guess ng is next generation. I don't know. Stress-ng --CPU 0. This says use all the CPUs. CPU method prime. We're going to do another prime number test. VM2, VM is memory testing. VM bytes, we're going to test 1 gig of memory test using the VM method of write64. We're also going to test the hard disk drive with 2 threads. We're going to test it with 1 gig of bytes, or 1 gigabyte. And we're going to tell it to run for 60 seconds and then quit, and then we're going to do brief metrics. So this is going to test the current hard disk. So I don't need to do all of that prepare of file stuff and whatnot before, but I do want to look at this really cool bpytop display in the background and see how it's running. And technically that's going to consume some CPU power to do the test, but this thing can handle it. We'll run it again without the test to get the real numbers, but here we go. And this test is going to run, like it said, for 60 seconds. See if I can talk for 60 seconds. Probably not. It's going to do a whole bunch of stuff. It's dispatching hogs for 20 CPUs and 2 threads for virtual memory and 2 threads for the hard disk test. Nope, I can't talk for 60 seconds. But this thing up here, she's pegged all 20 CPUs at 100%. And we've got maximum flag. Nice. And we're done. and the CPUs are calming down. So I'm going to grab these numbers and I'm going to put them into a table that we can look at together on a different screen. All right, I told you we'd be right back. Here is the list of data that we're looking at. And what I want you to focus on is this BOGO ops. And this is the real-time calculation. You can see that we've got the Beelink Me Mini machine that we're comparing it to, and we've got the Geekom IT13 box that we are doing all of our video on today. And then we have a couple of different metrics here. We've got a CPU metric, we've got a memory metric, we've got a hard disk metric. And in the case of the Beelink Me Mini, you might remember, you might not, it's okay, that there was an internal 64 gig eMMC, which is kind of like a flash drive. And then there was also that crucial drive that was an SSD. And those two drives together had wildly different performance results, but it's kind of important because the OS was going to run on the eMMC, and then all of your storage was going to be on that crucial drive, and many more drives, because again, that was set up as a NAS. And this one here is your Geekom down here, and let's take a look at those numbers. The CPU performance on the Beelink is 1,732, and the CPU performance on the i9 13th gen is 17,680. That is a much more realistic number comparing an old Celeron style processor to a new Intel i9 13th gen processor. Our VM, our memory performance, the 12 gigs of memory in the Beelink, 1,226, and the 32 gigs of memory in the Geekom is 3,076 operations per second. So almost twice as fast. Well, more than 2 times faster. The hard disk performance, we're going to compare the SSD to the SSD, and the Crucial SSD had a respectable 5,579 operations per second, while the Lexar SSD had 18,776 operations per second. So very good numbers on the Geekom machine now that we have a more realistic benchmark. And I will slowly begin converting all of my old benchmarks over to this new benchmark, so you will see those as the videos progress. Real quick to make sure that I don't get any of the specs wrong for you guys, this is the Geekom IT13 Mini PC 2025 edition with the 13th gen i9 13900 HK. I have come to know that this -13 at the end of the processor model number is the generation. So it's the 13th gen, you see the 13th there. 3-year quality support, I guess that comes directly from Intel. 32 gigs of RAM, we saw that. 1 terabyte of NVMe SSD, we saw that. It is a NUC 13, so it's the next unit of computing is what NUC stands for, and I think Intel created that like 10 or 11 years ago, and it's that new form factor, that new small square form factor instead of the great big ginormous desktop or mini tower PC that we're used to from way before. It is a mini desktop computer. It comes with Windows 11 Pro if you were one of those Windows 11 type of people. I am not, which is why we put Linux Mint on it and ran the benchmarks and had some fun. It has 8K ultra high definition video output. It has USB 4, it's got Wi-Fi 6E, and it's got Bluetooth 5.2. So all of that means this thing has got some super high performance type stuff going on inside of it. And if we look down at some more specs, you'll see that there are 14 cores, 20 threads, and 24 meg of cache. The way the operating system saw that was as 20 total cores instead of 14 cores with 20 threads. That's kind of the way that it's been for a long time. Even back in the old hyper-threading days, you would see hyper-threaded processors and multi-core processors, and the numbers would be slightly different. The operating system can only really tell what a thread is. It can't really tell actual cores as well, and it doesn't matter at the operating system level. That thing can run 20 threads at once, and that's what it wants to tell you it's doing. So that's why we saw 20 CPUs in there. It did have 2 HDMI ports on the back of it, but it does support 4 total screens of output. And so that's why we saw the DisplayPort logo on the USB-C port, is because 2 of the USB-C, USB 4 ports support the DisplayPort 1.4 and 8K resolution, and then there are 2 HDMI 2.0 ports that support 4K at 120 Hertz. So this is why Don always says DisplayPort is better. I don't have 8K eyes, so I can't look at it, and I don't have a screen bigger than 1080p anyway. So if you were interested in some more information about this machine, or if you would like to pick up one of these machines, I will leave a link for you in the description down below. And I'll also leave a link for the video that I did on the Beelink Me Mini that's sitting there behind me, running that screen behind me. So this is going to be a great addition to the shack, and we're going to do some more videos and things utilizing this computer instead of the Beelink Me Mini machine back there. Because we can, and because it's faster. and we like faster. So if you want to see somebody caveman their way through some benchmarks, then this is the channel for you. Make sure you are subscribed by hitting the subscribe button right below the video. And while you're down there, hit that like button too. YouTube likes it when you do that, and so do I. And then, after you've done all of that, I've got a video right over here for you I think you'll enjoy next. Thanks for being awesome. I'll see you over there.